May Allah's peace, mercy and His greetings be upon you. Before we start this episode, I want you to always comprehend that submission to God is followed by triumph and bestowal. Allah, the Almighty, says in the noble Quran, "But he who works deeds of righteousness, and has faith, will have no fear of harm nor of any curtailment of what is his due." Allah, the Almighty, says in the noble Quran, "But to those who receive guidance, He increases the light of guidance, and bestows on them their piety and restraint from evil." Allah, the Almighty, says in the noble Quran, "And for those who fear Allah, He ever prepares a way out, and for those who fear Allah, He will make their path easy." This is a frequent rule, throughout the Quran at a steady pace. Submission is followed by bestowal. The closer you get to Allah, the more He eased the means of guidance, triumph, and bestowal for you. Allah the Almighty says in the Qudsi Hadith, "And my slave keeps on coming closer to me, through performing nawafil, until I love him, so much so that I become his hearing with which he hears, and his sight with which he sees, and his hand with which he strikes, and his leg with which he walks, and if he asks me something, I will surely give him." Submission, and getting closer to God, is followed by triumph and bestowal. Now, let's start the episode by God's blessings. In the last 2 episodes, we spoke about the trouble that materialism gets, in regarding the emergence of life, and information. How did atheists face such troubles? How did they face those troubles, while there's a challenge worth $10 million from the Scientific Society for anyone who could create the simplest genetic strand that self-replicates? We spoke about the details of that challenge in the previous episode. How could mankind, with all sciences and universities, cannot even create the simplest genetic strand that self-replicates? While atheists attribute the occurrence of life, information, and encryption to the first primitive random environment of Earth, the encryption system that emerged in parallel with the information system that's written on the genetic strand in parallel with the emergence of life, such matters don't let any honest atheist sleep. I wonder how atheists faced those dilemmas and plights. The famous atheist, Richard Dawkins, tried to play a silly game that only can fool the fools. Dawkins used a software program, made by a programmer called Richard Dawkins, and said, "I will insert letters of some genes in this program. I will insert a part of the information system that a gene has into that program. This part will be from 28 letters. And the program will start displaying the letters randomly, till it saves the correct letter. The program saves the letter as soon as it reaches the correct required one. Then, a new search journey will set off, to find the next correct letter, and so on. The program will do these steps till it completes that part of that information system." This is the program on the screen. He wrote a suggested sentence here as a piece of information on the genetic strand. After that, the search journey for finding the required letters starts. The program will save the correct letter every time and ground on it, and so on. How many fallacies did Richard Dawkins use in that game? Dawkins didn't tell us what would happen if the program saved a wrong letter. Isn't it normal that the program stops, and not to start looking for the correct letter once again? Also, Dawkins didn't tell us about the mechanism that would select from among letters. The bigger problem is that, what is the meaning of forming 10 letters in a being that hasn't emerged yet? These letters have no meaning, or functional value in order to be saved in a being that hasn't emerged yet. Moreover, how could these letters change into life? Did you forget that the computer software program needs knowledge, ability, executing and design? Then, why did you require that in your experiment, and refuse to attribute it to the creator? Even though there are billions of encrypted letters in living beings' cells? How did the being that hasn't emerged yet, know his need for specific letters? The strange thing is that, the being will save only correct ones, and reject wrong ones even though he hasn't emerged yet. Richard Dawkins, by this experiment, in which he checks the letters and select the required, has neglected the idea of randomness, as it's a matter of knowledge, ability, and advance will. It's never randomness, or irrationality. Isn't it supposed for evolution to have no role of creation at all? How could he remove the wrong letters and construct on the previous correct summation? Nature doesn't have anything like this at all. A defect in a single letter within the gene strand may spoil the gene entirely. I wonder, how would you construct on a previous summation, while every event in the world of probabilities is independent? It has nothing to do with its predecessor. If there's a single wrong letter, then it's over. And it's supposed that the program will restart. Not constructing on the previous summation. So, Richard Dawkins have ignored the fundamentals of the science of probabilities. The problem is that he puts a specific goal from the beginning that the program is striving to achieve it. Every time, the program compare and check the results, until it gets the correct number that it was programmed for. It's artistry, advanced fine-tuning, and intent. This is what a believer tells you about, regarding the issue of creation. Why did you require fine-tuning in your program, and refuse to attribute it to the world of encryption that emerged in parallel with life itself? The attempt of Richard Dawkins makes us be proved that we are in front of philosophy, and not science at all. This is the essence of the theory of evolution since its birth, till now. Establishing imaginations, guesses, and assumptions that have nothing to do neither with reality, nor with what actually happens in nature. Just fantasies that have no connection to reality. Those fantasies only prove the existing dilemma. When we ask any atheist, how did the impressive sophisticated human eye emerge? He will pose a philosophical guess, that's very close to Dawkins' analysis. He will say, there are less complex eyes in the world of living beings. There are light-sensitive cells. That answer, from the atheist, is the origin of the dilemma, which shows that we are in front of a theory that completely count on the philosophical discourse, not scientific at all. The inimitability, or miracle, is not only about the eye, but it's about light-sensitive cells. Why did these cells specifically got sensitive to light? How does light-sensitive transform into an electric pulse? How does the electric pulse transform into awareness and vision of what you see? The issue is deficient from the beginning. That philosophical discourse is quite like when we say to the same atheist, can nature create a tray of cheese kunafa? The atheist will respond, it's so easy. Wheat is found in nature, and meteors fall continuously, and it may grind some wheat. And with some rain, wheat is changed into the dough. Cooking may occur on one edge of a volcanic furnace rock. Regarding the taste of kunafa, sugarcane is found everywhere, and hot water springs are enough to liquefy sugarcane. Regarding the cheese in kunafa, there are many cows, and their udders drop milk after feeding their babies. You must have comprehended the absurdity of that discourse. You would feel bored. The issue is not about the abundance of raw materials. Cows, sugarcane, wheat, meteors, and volcanoes. The issue is not about the abundance of raw materials. It's about knowledge. The know-how that produces a tray of cheese kunafa. The issue is deficient from the beginning. If you waited for millions of years, a tray of cheese kunafa will never emerge. Because it's a matter of knowledge and making, not raw materials. What atheists really do is that they disassemble the parts of the complex biological system. They disassemble the parts that form the eye, then they reassemble these parts again from nature. As if we are playing a puzzle game. Disassemble and assemble. They have a vivid imagination. And some people possess the talent of making up a story. Cows, wheat, meteors, and volcanoes. But it will remain as a fantasy story. Those raw materials have nothing to do with the emergence of cheese kunafa. Inside the cell, at the molecular level, each detail matters. A defect in a single letter, within the gene stripe, may spoil the system entirely. The accuracy of the human eye is equal to 576 megapixels. It has the purest lens in the world. The size of photoreceptor in the retina, by which we see the world around you, is about 1/4 square millimeter. Creation, inimitability and fine-tuning. A defect, even in a single letter within the gene stripe, may spoil such a sophisticated system entirely. In order to comprehend some details about what really happens in your eye at the moment of seeing, in order to know how that fantastic system is so sophisticated, which cannot be interpreted by the Darwinian mythical system of disassemble and assemble, in order to know how that system is so impressive, just stay with me. When light photons fall on your retina, they stimulate a protein called rhodopsin. Rhodopsin exists in the cells of the retina. After rhodopsin is being stimulated, it sticks to another protein, and they emit a molecule called GDP, and they acquire, from it, a molecule called GTP instead. They become stronger, after acquiring that molecule. So, they could separate the molecule of CGMP. After CGMP is being separated, sodium, which has plus charge, goes inside the cell. As soon as sodium goes inside the cell, an imbalance of charges across the cell membrane occurs. That imbalance is what generates the electric current that moves from the optic nerve to the brain. When that electric current reaches your brain, a miracle happens. Your brain interprets that current as vision. As if the brain has a dictionary already. Then it converts that current to the vision of what you see. The brain exists in a dark box of bones, the skull. Nothing reaches the brain, but electric currents, from eyes, ears, and different senses. How does the brain interpret the electric current to be vision? How did the brain give you the vision? How could the brain differentiate between 10 million different color tones, with their dimensions while nothing reaches it but a simple electric current? How could the brain give you the vision of what you look at, with different dimensions and differentiated color tones? How could the brain give you such awareness, while it exists in a dark box of bones where nothing reaches it but electric currents? How could the brain give you hearing and sensation as soon as an electric current reaches it from the eyes, ears, or sensory nerve? The important thing is that sophisticated miracle happens once you open your eyes and look ahead. After the visual cycle, rhodopsin returns to take part in another cycle of vision. The code of required enzymes to disassemble the rhodopsin protein after the visual cycle also exists in the genetic strand in each cell of yours retina, and eye lens, eyebrows, eyelashes, skull and brain. The code of creating all of these organs exists in the genetic strand in each cell of yours. The atoms of this universe are not enough to create a single rhodopsin protein by chance, as well as a retina, a brain, realizing the meaning of vision, and the emergence of you, human. Allah, the Almighty, says in the noble Quran, such is the creation of Allah, now show me what is there that others besides him have created, nay, but the transgressors are in manifest error. Hereupon, we move on to the last part of this episode. Have we observed any kind of evolution of the eye in fossils? Have we observed any of that? Those who pose this guess fall in three fallacies. The fallacy of cheese kunafa. As it's not about the abundance of raw materials, but it's about information systems. The fallacy of the puzzle game. As they disassemble the information system, then they reassemble that system from nature. The fallacy of the cannot be simplified complexity in eyes proteins, realizing the vision, eyes enzymes, the brain structure, and countless complex functions about the system, of the visual system. After falling in all of these fallacies, they will find out that paleontology will discover things against what they expect. Fossil records have proved that the complex eye has emerged with the beginning of the Cambrian period. For example, with the beginning of the emergence of the phylum of living things. The complex eye has emerged suddenly. So, I advise the atheists to think again about their fruitless answer, especially after falling in fallacies. May Allah guide us all. For today's assignments is a small book entitled 40 Mistakes in the Theory of Evolution. Till the next episode, we will read till page number 38. You can find the book in the first link in the description. Thanks for listening. May Allah reward you well. May Allah's peace, mercy, and His greetings be upon you.